of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, for you are our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Good to see you all. It's wonderful. Happy homecoming. Faith without works is dead. This is what St. James told us last week. I also mentioned that prayer doesn't necessarily work unless there's action attached to it. This morning we embark on the journey of creation as we embrace our new liturgical season in the Anglican Church, and that is the season of creation. This season has been happening throughout the world since 1989. The Anglican Church formally adopted it in 2019 at our General Synod. I'm so pleased that we here at Christ Church have embraced this new season. Over the next couple of weeks, we will gather for a time of prayer, a time of education, and of course, a time of action. In our time this morning, I'd like to touch on the understanding of what community means for establishing right order in God's creation, how we are called to act, and the understanding that God is with us in all that we do. Our season of creation is not just Anglican, but rather it's ecumenical, meaning that all denominations can participate. This year's theme is a home for all, renewing the oikos of God. Oikos meaning family. In our Genesis reading, God set a dome over the earth. And God said, "Let there be a dome in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." So God made the dome and separated the waters that were under the dome from the waters that were above the dome. And it was so. God called the dome sky. And there was evening and there was morning, the second day. This word dome is in the words such as domicile or domestic, and we often use the word dominion when it comes to the church's response to creation. In Genesis we hear, "Then God said, and now we will make human beings. They will be like us and resemble us. They will have power over the fish, the birds, and the animals, domestic and wild, large and small." We have dominion over God's creation. Often we think that this puts us at the top of the food chain, but really, I see it as a responsibility to be along all sides of creation. It makes us stewards of what God has given us, all that is under the dome. And really, God puts us all people, all living under the same roof. We are all in the oikos of God, the family of God. Together as a beloved community, we explore what this means. For we live in a world of danger, a world of greed, a world of disconnect. The world is crying out. In many ways, we may have forgotten the kindness that God has bestowed upon us through creation. Paul says, "So neither the one who plants nor the one who waters is anything, but only God who gives the growth. The one who plants and the one who waters have a common purpose, and each will receive wages according to the labor of each. For we are God's servants, working together. You are God's field, God's building." So much of what we are looking at throughout this season of creation is going to be around housing and poverty and environmentalism, the impacts that we as humans have on our planet. And if we think about it, the earth is perhaps one of the most things we have in common together. The first time I entered the world of environmentalism was when I heard the term acid rain in a grade 5 science class. I can remember sitting in the library looking through my science textbook and discovering the word for the first time. I remember saying to myself, this can't be true. Just the mere thought of acid on one's skin burning was enough to make me sick. Of course, a child's imagination runs wild. Or does it? In my youth, I would later learn about the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. Some of you may know that Julie and I have been looking into solar power for our house. Energy is on the minds of many people. Conversations around climate change are vital and important. Just last week, we here hosted a political debate where, as moderator, I asked all the candidates, what are your party's plans to address the climate crisis in terms of reduction of greenhouse gases, emissions, and the present and future impacts of climate change? It was important to ask that question. We had a discussion. One of the things I do find troubling about how our conversation about the environment is going is that sometimes it divides us. If you're from Alberta, do you think one way? Or if you're from the East, do you see our response differently? The debate about our oil sands and renewable energies has divided our country, and we need to find common ground. If we could see the oikos for what it is, our common relationship in our world, perhaps we can move further, even ahead. I think today's generation is more engaged, perhaps, in this critical issue. Greta Thunberg said, for way too long, the politicians and the people in power have gotten away with not doing anything to fight the climate crisis, but we will make sure that they will not get away with it any longer. We are striking because we have done our homework, and they have not. David Attenborough speaks about the need for education, saying, no one will protect what they don't care about, and no one will care about what they have never experienced. I believe that through the gift of science and our collective imagination, we are in the midst of changing our behavior. It's not all doom and gloom, but yet there is much to do. Time is indeed critical. In the last few years, we are seeing the emergence of electric and solar energy, hybrid and fully electric cars, less reliance on gasoline, and more encouragement of active transportation methods, such as biking and walking. Yesterday, I took a van out for a test drive, Julie and I did. We have 3 boys now and a dog, so we need to get a motorhome or something, I don't know. Society seems to take these kind of hybrid cars, sees them as important. It's an interesting science, because much of what goes into the batteries of electric cars can also come from the ground, that which is mined. I can remember when I was living in South Africa seeing the cobalt mines, such utter devastation. That remote landscape, in it lies the heart of the world's scramble for cheap cobalt, a mineral that is in all of our lithium-ion batteries, our smartphones, our laptops, our electric cars. I share this with you so that we can recognize that solving the problems is not easy. Producing less gasoline for cars may mean more mining. We're still not there yet on the journey of perfection. So how can we move further in producing great change? I think that recognizing God's presence in this journey will be vital to our place as Christians in help sustaining the earth. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to be learning about water, the land, animals, how we and the actions that we do either move us forward or bring us back. And so I'd invite you to reflect on the prayers, the liturgy, the hymns, the Eucharist that we share over the next couple of weeks. I'd encourage you to participate in coming to church, hearing our guest speakers, and learning more about what our diocese is doing, how we can respond to environmental racism, and how we can support all of God's creatures. As a family in God's oikos, we need to support one another as we journey together. Time is something that we talk about when it comes to environmental justice. We say time is running out, time is scarce. If we don't act now, nothing will be left. In the town hall of Copenhagen stands the world's most complicated clock. Some of you may have been there and seen it, some may not. It took 40 years to build this clock at the cost of more than $1 million. The clock has 10 faces, 15,000 parts, and is accurate to 2/5 of a second every 300 years. The clock computes the time of day, the days of the week, the months and the years, and the movements of the planets for 2,500 years. Some parts of that clock will not move until 25 centuries have actually passed. What is intriguing about that clock is that it is not completely accurate. It also loses 2/5 of every second every 300 years. Like all clocks, this timepiece in Copenhagen must be regulated by a more precise clock, the universe itself. That mighty astronomical clock with its billions of moving parts from atoms to stars rolls on century after century with moments so reliable that all time on earth can be measured against it. God is what we call Logos. God is timeless. And therefore God is always with us. And in our hymn today you'll hear, like a healing stream in a barren desert, spirit water bringing life to dusty earth. God is trickling through our lives as in a dream unfolding, promising revival and rebirth like a healing stream. I think that right now it's time that we are with God. And so, my friends, as we gather together under the dome, as we travel this road of creation, let us be a people who include God in everything we do. Amen.